Welcome to the NC Spin After Spin. Additional comments from our panelists just available on our website. We want to ask, what do you wish you had said on last week's show, but you didn't? Connie Wilson?
Well, on last week's show, we talked about the legislation that was dealt with in this last long session. And one of the issues that we never even mentioned that was so huge is the STOP Act that was sponsored by Representative Murphy, Representative Lambeth, a host of others, Senator Tom McGinnis, and it also had the Attorney General's support. But it's a major piece of legislation that starts us on the path of dealing with an epidemic that we have here in North Carolina where a lot of people are dying because of drug overdoses.
Opioids.
And it took a lot of time to bring all the stakeholders together because there were a lot of moving parts. It wasn't just physicians, but it was nurses, assistants. Even veterinarians ended up in the debate. Can you believe it? Veterinarians ended up in this debate.
That's a reach, but I'll take your word for it.
But they were at the table also.
Chris Fitzsimon, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Two quick things about the legislative session that we didn't get to. One is that the General Assembly is using federal block grants to fund important things like increasing the number of spots in NC pre-K program. Those block grants looks like are going to be cut in Washington by either the president's budget or the congressional budget. That seems like a risky strategy. And number two is they created something called education savings accounts, which has had mixed success in other states. Even people who think it's a good idea, I hope, would realize we never debated it. It was in the budget. It was never become before an education committee. We never had people testify about it, and that's increasingly the way we do business in North Carolina, and that's the wrong way to do it.
Special provisions. John Hood, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
During the last segment of last week's show, Howard brought up the question about test score trends, how in the 80s and 90s in particular in North Carolina and in many other states that have been innovating, there were significant gains in student achievement, but they topped off in the early 2000s, and in some cases we're not seeing good trends recently. This is also a trend in other countries, as Howard got at, and part of what we have to be careful about when we do this is that we're not comparing the same populations of students over time. Part of what's been going on in North Carolina, other states, and even in other countries is, for example, a larger number of immigrant children coming in. They tend to test lower. They may actually be making test score gains against where they used to be, but because they test lower, they end up pulling the average down. Now, a kid is a kid, and a test score is a test score, and we need to make sure kids achieve at the highest levels. But a lot of the apparent stagnation or decline is actually just demographic change. It's not about what the schools add value. Schools, there may actually be an overall increase in student achievement masked by changes in the demographics.
Got you. Howard Lee, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Well, we spent some time talking about incentives and how we would hope that process would end up improving opportunities in our rural areas. North Carolina has spent a lot of time and money through the years, through the North Carolina Fund and many other entities. I think we need to put a lot more emphasis on finding ways to impact our rural communities, and we cannot abandon incentives because politically they look bad. If we're going to be in the game, we might as well go with all of our tools and find a way to attract the kind of jobs here that will help us rebuild our middle class.
All right. Well, thanks for watching the After Spin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.